broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of the AR-15 podcast is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to the AR-15 podcast. This is the podcast about your favorite black rifle. This show is for you. Whether you're building your first AR or you've been building ARs for years, there is something we can all do to take our black rifle to the next level.
You make this show possible by clicking through our Brownells and Amazon affiliate links. The next time you order online, go to AR15podcast.com and click through our Brownells and Amazon affiliate links. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and a small portion of your sale goes to supporting pro-gun radio like the AR-15 podcast.
Welcome to episode number 165 of the AR-15 podcast. In this episode, JD and I are going to talk about who's shaking things up in the AR world. I know that we have a lot of news come across our desks all the time about what's hot and what's not. And so we're going to see if we can't let you in on any secrets that you don't already know about. Or maybe if you have a secret that we're not aware of, you can catch us up after the show when you give us some feedback. JD, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good, man. It's been it was a long weekend, so Monday was actually a welcome sight, and I need to tell you something, Reed, confess a little bit here. Brownells had a sale on Arrow lowers, and I added some more to my collection. So
you know, JD, I don't recall getting a text, a poke, a messenger, Facebook Messenger message, an email, a smoke. I don't remember seeing anything from you saying, "Hey, Reed, pay attention. There's a sale on Arrow receivers." Did I miss that, JD?
Well, I didn't reach out because I was afraid you might talk me out of it. Since I have like 6 in the safe.
I enabled the AR addiction of what is it now, almost 7,000 weekly listeners. I don't know why you would think I would stand in the way of you having fun when I enable all of those other men and women to do their thing. I think that's a little strange that you would even suggest that.
Well, I wanted to make sure I got mine because I remember when the M5 lower and upper combo, they had it on sale. Somebody in this conversation got one and somebody didn't.
So the truth comes out. I see. You just didn't want to miss out, and you wanted to get a little payback. I see. I get it. It's all
okay.
Right.
Well, this will make you feel better. They're still on sale. I just checked Brownells. I didn't buy them all out. Got a pretty good deal going on. $30 off. There's also a code floating around there too that you can get another $15 off. So depending on how many you buy, that may come in useful.
All right. Well, we'll have to see what I can do. Well, everybody, I guess that's enough shenanigans on our part. So, we've got an NRA show coming up here. And on Saturday, the 21st of May of this year, the Firearms Radio Network is going to be at the Cardinal Hall of Fame Cafe for a listener meetup. It's going to be at 7 p.m., 7 in the evening. And so come on out and meet the guys. I don't know if any of the AR-15 crew is going to be there, but obviously there are a lot of other great shows and podcasts on the network, and I know they would all love you to show up and make them feel better by pretending that you listen to their shows. So, and you know what, Jake says that he will buy you around if you can say ambidextrous exactly the same way he does. Now, of course, I say it the American way because that's how it's spelled. So don't follow my guidance. Follow Jake's and do it his way, and that might just net you a free drink. So we'll see. He might not live up to his offer there. In any case, So, JD, how's your week been?
It's been pretty busy, man. Just a lot of stuff going on at a day job, the job that pays the bills, and just trying to get things in gear. The kids are in the final weeks of school and driving us all crazy. So just trying to stay sane, man. How about you?
It's the same thing. I guess the unfortunate thing about my line of work is right about now, I'm in the thick of it. So probably about another week, and I'll be done with the heaviest part of the lifting. And I know that we have made a couple promises to some of our listeners. We have some Otis kit that is waiting for me to get to it. I apologize profusely. My guess is by the time you hear the sound of my voice on this very episode, it will all be in the mail. And hopefully you will have forgiven me for my dilatory response to getting my duties finished. So I guess it's time to consider tonight's show. But before doing so, why don't you tell us about some of the hard work you've been doing to get the podcast organized and make me, I guess, sound more professional by having shows that are far better prepared.
Well, we've got some cool things coming up. Aero Precision, we're in talks with them for them to come on and share about their product line. Also, the story behind Aero Precision as a Pacific Northwest company and kind of the adapting they had to do when the aerospace industry kind of took a little turn and went elsewhere up there in the Pacific Northwest. So they're coming up. Also, one of the most requested episodes is the when it hits the fan stuff. What type of AR would be good in it hits the fan situation? So Bob Main from the Handgun World podcast is going to join us a little bit later this month, and he's going to give us his kind of practical AR for a survival situation. Bob does the Handgun World podcast. He also does a survival podcast that is a no tinfoil hat podcast. So we're looking forward to have Bob on and Aero Precision a little bit later this month. Also excited to announce that Otis Technology has re-upped their partnership with the AR-15 podcast. We got everything wrapped up on this earlier this week. We are looking forward to the product that is going to be coming to the AR-15 podcast and the new ways we're looking to get it into your hands. So we thank Otis Technology for their past partnership and continuing to sponsor and help support the AR-15 podcast. Coming up next week, I believe, New Frontier Armories David, the man behind the scenes there, is going to be on the show, and we are going to be talking about 9mm carbines. It's best to go to the guys that know how to do it right. And New Frontier Armory in North Las Vegas is doing it right. And they're also the big sponsors of donating that 9mm carbine rifle for the AR-15 podcast giveaway. You can sign up. You can go to the show notes and check out the link for this episode, or you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com /AR-15 podcast, and we'll have the sign up there. You can also go to the firearmsradio.tv site, and they will have the link there under the AR-15 podcast part of that website. So we've got some exciting things coming up. Also reaching out to other businesses and those in the industry and those shooters that you guys want to hear about. If you have a topic you'd like to hear or somebody you'd like us to talk to and get more information on stuff, we would love to hear from you. You can always shoot us an email at ar15.podcast@gmail.com. That's AR15podcast or AR15.podcast@gmail.com.
Well, with that, what do you think we tackle some of these main topic highlights and dive right into who's shaking things up in the AR-15 world?
Sounds good.
Well, so one of the first things we have here is Blitzkrieg components. So why don't you tell me what you know about Blitzkrieg components and what it is that they are doing in the AR-15 world that is kind of trying to set the world ablaze?
Well, for me, what caught my eye about these is something that a friend shared with me after I told him that sometimes my eyesight's pretty jacked up. I have to wear prescription sunglasses, prescription glasses when I shoot. If not, I actually cannot hit the broad side of a barn, even if it's like 20 yards in front of me. So what Blitzkrieg Components is doing, they have a front sight post that it's like a yellow or a green. It's a luminescent green stripe, and it causes it to stick out more against the background of what you're shooting against, whether you're shooting steel or paper targets. For me, in the sight line, it makes it much easier to kind of pick up on the sight and be able to put it on the target. And so it helps me improve, when I'm shooting in my groups, and actually helps me with the eye relief in the situation because I'm not straining as much to focus. So what they're doing is actually helping me as a shooter that has horrible eyesight, and has to wear glasses to be able to shoot, and has to use my prescription safety glasses. So it's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes. And one of the downsides is, the eye relief. Your eyes, get strained, you get a headache. And now with this, I'm finding it's a lot easier and it's relaxing on my eyes. Unfortunately, I've only got it or tried it out on one of my rifles. More sets to be ordered into the future. But man, Reed, it helps me with eyesight problems. I know it'll help just a normal shooter too. Maybe if they don't even have the eyesight problems like I do.
One of the things that I think as a I've always worn glasses, and when I was in the Marine Corps, I shot left-handed. I'm left eye dominant, but in my left eye I'm far-sighted, and so actually no, I think that's wrong. I think I'm nearsighted. In any case, what was easy for me, being left eye dominant and with my particular vision problems, is that I could focus on the front sight post with ease. Now, the target was a big giant blur. And so I was doing naturally what I was instructed to do to aim properly. Focus on the front sight post and just line the dang post up on the big blurry spot. But as I've aged, my eyes have gotten progressively worse, and I'm always in fear of that moment when I'll fail to be able to do that. And so I keep my eye on these developments to just kind of figure out who is being more progressive in this realm. And K&S has some pretty innovative replacement posts, but they really haven't done anything in terms of approaching it from this perspective, putting some luminescent elements on it, or the tritium dots, and it appears to be either a luminescent green stripe alone or a luminescent green stripe with a tritium dot. There are some with a luminescent white stripe, or perhaps it's just a white stripe. It doesn't say luminescent. And so that to me is intriguing. I do see that they have a replacement front sight post for the M-Bus Pros. And so I think I may very well just invest in one of those to see where that's going to take me, and see if perhaps that's going to give me a little more clarity when it comes to that kind of diminishing return my eyes are giving me. So, I kind of like the idea that someone's going to go out there and try to make a better mousetrap with something that is such a fundamentally basic part of most any rifle that it's become something nobody's looked at in probably 30 years. It's still the same, lamp black, dark metal square post on the end of your front sight base, or whatever it is your modern sight is. And who's taking a look at that? Nobody, as far as I can tell, in a long time. So I kind of like that idea. And so you say you have some experience with these?
Yeah, I had a friend who had something. I'm not sure if it's the one that I'm just looking at their website. I'm not sure if it's the new one that they just announced that we're talking about, or one of the older ones. But it definitely improved my, when we put it on the rifle, it definitely improved me being able to get the sight picture and lining up the sights. It made it easier for me to use iron sights instead of, relying on red dots and things like that. And it probably makes Reed happy that somebody's out there using iron sights. But
it does. It makes me very happy.
it's one of those things where it moved quickly to the top of my list of, where the AR pistol went down from last episode. These sights actually shot up the list because it'll help make it easier for me to shoot. Also, my wife, who struggles with her eyesight too, it'll help her shoot and find it more enjoyable too.
Well, good thing. Well, I would say that pretty much anybody that is going to kind of blaze the same path or blaze the path in the same direction as Blitzkrieg is probably someone to just keep an eye on. At some point, you may find that it's in keeping with your needs and goals to put something like this at the top of your list. So don't discount anybody else coming up from the back of the field trying to muscle out another industry where I guess someone who has the market penetration in that particular spectrum. But right now it seems to be Blitzkrieg. But I think that's a good starting point for who's making waves in the AR world kind of thing. So you got Aero Precision down. And, of course, we've got some Aero Precision components between you and I, more heavily weighted in your favor. But, the charging handle seems to be something that has been done and done and done again. But now that Aero Precision is kind of in this space, what is it that drew you to them in terms of what they're offering and, what Aero standing behind something like this means to you?
I'm a fan of, I think I've got like a loyalty to the geographical area where I grew up. I wasn't into ARs or anything growing up. I was very lightly into shooting, would go hunting where I grew up in Oregon. And so as I miss my home away from home, as I live in the middle of the desert where you have to buy the trees that you plant on your property, I like to support companies that are from the Pacific Northwest that are doing good things. And Aero Precision is one of those companies that when I first started, wanting to build and moving towards, that I was, excited to get involved with because they were involved with Boeing in the aerospace industry for a very long time. My father-in-law worked at Boeing, and so there's kind of a pride of ownership there of knowing a company that, could technically be out of business with, what the shift in the industry, and they were left kind of high and dry, but they have turned to adapt to do something pretty cool with the firearms industry now. So I'm always going to be probably a fanboy, like a Mega Arms fanboy, I know, of Aero Precision. And so when they came out with their Ambi charging handle, it's like one of those I can put on the top of my list because it's something that I've used their uppers, I've used their lowers in 90% of my builds. And so I'm looking forward to getting hands on this to be able to add it to the rifles that I've built, just because of the product. Now, I may get it and it may not live up to some of the other products. And if it doesn't, then, we'll have that conversation down the road. But when I saw they were releasing this, that was enough for me to say, you know what? All right, now that they're in the game, I can part with, about $80 and give this a shot and see what it can do for me.
I like that. The Ambi charging handle is something that really kind of has always been, I think, a neglected part of the AR, except until the last, 10 years, maybe less, maybe 5 years. And, it's something that's been always critical to me. Operating an AR with your, right hand trying to actuate the charging handle, it becomes problematic. So I kind of like more choices. Of course, I have a particular favorite, but I am not opposed to trying out new things. I'm kind of like Mikey in the Life cereal ad, right? So, I'm going to keep my eyes open, and if I have an opportunity to get hands-on, I'm going to put my consideration behind it and see where it goes. I mean, I love Aero Precision. They make some great stuff. I have always been really pleased with the level of quality they put into their receivers. So I wouldn't expect anything less from them for any of the other parts that they might come to market with. So I'm excited to see this. But you know what? Aero Precision is really, I think, trying to dial it up in terms of the things they're doing. You know, they've begun integrating, I guess it would be compatible or, you know, collaborative ventures with companies that are under a common ownership umbrella. They all enhance the offering of the other, you know, combining the barrel manufacturing capabilities of the sister company with their receiver capabilities, their furniture, handguards, you know, barrels, all those things. It really kind of brings together under one common eye, you know, a common, you know, ethos or philosophy behind the way that they make and manufacture. It to me creates this whole environment where you're going to get a common level of quality in the output that they've created because of the things they've done to combine all these companies. And so I really like that when it comes to someone trying to step into this market and do it better or do it in a much more comprehensive and efficient way. You know, and I think that we're probably going to see this trend, you know, I would say probably in the next 5 years, it's going to be rampant. A lot of these startups that were able to really kind of come out and create a nice niche for themselves, I think are going to have to partner up with other like-minded companies in order to survive. Because when you look around, you know, if there's Aero out here that's spreading its wings in ways that allow it to be a one-stop shop, Battle Arms Development is another company that appears to be heading in the direction of the one-stop shop. Mega Arms is headed in that direction. The offerings, the base is spreading out. And, you know, we've always had the old guard, the Palmetto State Armories, the BCM. Those guys have just always been capable of coming into their space with a lot of the things necessary to complete a rifle build from, you know, beginning to end. But now that you have this kind of upper tier of quality doing the same thing, I think that we're going to see kind of a snowball effect as other companies try to figure out how to get on this bandwagon or be left behind. Now, wait a minute. You're not supposed to shake your head. You're supposed to be like a color guy.
Taking in what you're saying, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's these companies that are growing. You know, before you would see the offerings that Aero would have, and now you're seeing things like, you know, complete upper receivers that are suppressed, and you're seeing their the rifles that they're putting out there. They've got some throwback rifles that they've just started to market, the M16 4A Special Edition. And so those companies that you mentioned are the companies that a lot of people are excited about, Mega Arms, the Battle Arms, and they're doing new things that are making the industry grow. And it's kind of like that, you know, you can have Ford and Chevy all you want, but there's going to be other car companies that are going to adapt. And so those, you know, those old stalwarts are going to have to adapt if they want to stick around in the future. So I'm excited when these companies start pushing and start making people be creative and think outside of the box. And then you develop all these little companies that are doing something really cool and really creative that makes the AR even more adaptable or more customizable to those that want to do it the way they want to do it.
Yep, I'd say absolutely. So, you know, the 800-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to the AR world is always, I think, right now, it's Magpul. You know, they are a powerhouse in their own right. Everybody wants to put their furniture on their rifles. Everybody wants to have their accessories tuned to the products that they release. You know, I don't know between M-Lock and Keymod who's got the edge, but you know what? I think that Magpul is by themselves setting a standard that other people are just following, you know, by virtue of the force of their, you know, company. And, you know, it's a good thing. when they come out with something that really kind of enhances the offering. You know, when you're to the third gen or the fourth gen or the fifth gen, you really wonder, why do they keep doing it? But, along with that, Magpul does innovate, and they do come out with new products. And so one of the ones that you pointed out here, JD, which is one of the ones that I've recently been able to add to my list of must-haves and do-haves, is the D60 60-round magazine. And so, when it comes to Magpul and the PMag magazines, I think that they really have kind of set a standard. They're almost, ubiquitous. When you think about the AR-15, more often than not, you got a PMag hanging from it, and that's okay. They're a great magazine, but I think a lot of people like the idea of the higher capacity magazines. What is it? The Russians had that magazine. You look at the old shows with the Thompsons. There's the drum magazine. There's a lot of places you see it, and I don't know that I would necessarily say that you cannot exist in a world of operators who are operating operationally and not have a D60. I don't know. I don't know that that's the case, but hey, it's nice to have. I like it. I think it's neat. So, I mean, what more do you need, right?
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. It's $130 for a 60-round magazine. I think that's a bargain by any stretch of the imagination. So, what do we have? X products they have out there. That's only a 50-round magazine, right? The X-15 is the 50-round drum magazine. And, I will tell you that I guess being, aluminum, that's, the catchy thing, but it's $191 or $190 for one of those. Almost 200.
Dang.
I think that's a pretty steep price to pay when you can go to Magpul and get their reliability, their engineering, their weight savings on a 60-round magazine for less. And I don't think that the X Products is a bad magazine. I'm just saying that it's expensive. And so what? I can get 3 PMags and I can have the same capacity for a fraction of the cost. Why would I pay $200 under those conditions? I just don't know. But if you're going to go that route, I just don't know that you should be forced to pay the highest price for something that is being offered when you can pay a much more reasonable price. And, in all reality, at $129, it's not like Magpul is keeping up with the polymer costs of their other baseline magazines. So, but, there's some extra engineering. I get it. There's some things that they need to put in there so that it works right. But, and, really when you get into it, what you find in probably the Surefire is another really big kind of 60-round capacity magazine offering. It's about the same price point, but it's novel in a way that is not a drum magazine. It's not operating on the same principles that we've known since whenever the drum magazine for the Thompson came out, which was probably 100 years ago. So I think some people have some reservations about them in terms of the springs and the followers and how it's supposed to accommodate a 60-round capacity. But, it's on par price-wise with our offering from, Magpul, but it's kind of a non-traditional form. So, I mean, I'm really, really drawn to the whole D60 offering in a high capacity magazine. And, I think that that's still a testament to the way Magpul is engineering. And I think one of the things that I will point out is that weight aside, when you're going to put a D60 in your rifle, your profile in terms of height from the bottom of the magazine to the top of your upper rail is not all that different from a standard 30 round PMag. Whereas that's not the case with the Surefire magazine, and certainly with the an X Products 50 round magazine, you get some extra added weight because of the material components there. So, I think the D60 is a nice middle of the road compromise. JD, have any thoughts?
I like how you spent a good amount of the time talking about how you spent $129 on that one when you know that I paid a premium to get mine sooner.
Did I say that enough times?
Yeah. I think there's enough salt in that wound. I couldn't wait, so I paid probably about a 30, maybe 40% premium to get it here sooner. And
should we do the math? What is 40% of 130?
Let's not. But it's worth it for me. It's fun to go out and shoot. And probably the best mating to a rifle that I've had is the Tavor. It makes shooting the Tavor, because the Tavor is so balanced. If you put that, the added weight doesn't bother you at all. So you're able to keep going. But I primarily got it for home defense. It's on my home defense rifle. It's ready to go. I trust the Magpul name. I've used PMags. Any problems I've had with them have been either running them over with the truck or, something stupid like that. But I trust that in that time in my rifle that it'll operate when I need it to. So I've had a blast with it. It's fun to put it on when you're taking if we've got VIPs or something from the radio station in town. You put a 60 round drum on an AR, their eyes get really big. So it's a cool kind of range toy to have, but also for me, the meaning behind the purchase was for home defense, because now I have 60 rounds. I don't have to worry about a reload. And if I get past 60 rounds, I really need to practice those iron sights, shooting down a hallway. So,
well, and I do want to go on record as correcting myself. I did say that it would take 3 PMags to equal 1 D60. I was wrong. That's only 2 30-round PMags to equal 1 D60. You'll have to forgive me. I've had too much of numbers in my head for the last month to really make much sense of them now. So just be happy I caught my mistake before the rest of you all decided to write me emails telling me that, hey, Reed, 330 round magazines is 90. So no. Okay.
You could still write Reed if you would like.
No. I always get grumpy this time of year. I know JD likes to encourage that. He likes that whole salty thing. I'm just going to actually not return anybody's email until I've had an opportunity to rest and recuperate and reply in a civil manner.
Go
ahead.
Up next, I was checking out what you put in here for executive ordinance. I was cruising around their site. These I don't know if you'd call them would you call them a skeleton grip? Or, I mean...
no, I wouldn't. What it is it is a grip designed to have panels attached to them. So the panels allow you to add different design elements to the panel and textures to the panel and colors to the panel. And, for something that for so long has been completely ignored, I would say almost up until Magpul came out with their kind of line of grips, AR-15 grips were completely ignored. It was that standard hollow plastic, I don't even know when they began. I know they were on the rifles I had in 87. It's just an A2 grip. It's just a junky piece of injection molded plastic. But somebody finally decided there's a better way to make them, and a way that makes them useful or more utilitarian or even more comfortable, whatever the case may be. But executive ordinance has come up with a way to really kind of take that to a new level. And I think that kind of innovation is interesting. I like what they've done with them. And I think, honestly, I'd be more than happy to move into that space, try one out, and see what I think of it in kind of a real use situation. I don't know what they offer in terms of advantage over what is currently available. They don't seem to be all that heavy. Of course, I couldn't tell you what my standard grips weigh compared to a 3.8 ounce grip. I don't know if mine are heavier or lighter, but I think it's kind of interesting, the idea that you can get one of these with some awesome looking red panels or some green panels, and then you can, I think, mate them to some rail scales that are in terms of their offering the same texture and the same color. I'm thoroughly convinced that at some point you're going to be able to deck out your AR in terms of color and design the same way you would your new car you're getting from the factory at Ford. You're going to figure out what the interior is and what the accessory color is and what the base coat of your car is. I think that's kind of interesting. But aside from that element, the fact that you have a set of grips that are durable, that are fulfilling that functional component, but then adding some comfort and texture and grip elements that kind of allow you to customize it in any way you want. I mean, I think that's all positive stuff.
Man, they look beautiful, actually. Just checking out their Facebook page. It really kind of dresses up an AR in a way that I just kind of thought was lost, not something that you would think about, but goodness. They've got, dang it, Reed. Already spent my gun budget for the week.
Yeah, now I want you to understand, guys, that, I cannot be held responsible for the choices you make after listening to one of the shows. So, it's kind of like if you don't like what's on TV, don't, change the channel. If you don't want to buy what it is we talk about here on the show, then control yourself. All right. Well, all of that aside, I do want you to go out and check it out. And if you want to buy some, buy some. But, I think it really is going to be the case that we will find ourselves in a place where we have enough flexibility to really make a rifle completely our own in every way, shape, and form. And I don't know how long it's going to be before we really get to innovate with a lot of the other, components kind of, coming down to the point of being able to really get creative with the receivers. But I mean, obviously, here's an example of someone trying to start. So I'm all for that.
Dang, only about 3 ounces too on the. Sorry, I'm still enthralled with their Facebook page, checking out all the different designs and stuff. These guys are just like the innovation we're talking about that's causing people to think twice. This is, I mean, I'm seeing every different kind of Cerakote job that you could imagine, every different kind of pattern or, minimalist or getting real extravagant. And they've got something that'll tie it all together. And you wouldn't think that a grip would be something that could add much to the rifle on a, looks department, but it's actually pretty cool. Check them out, Executive Ordnance. They're on Facebook and Instagram. They've got a website, and it looks like they run specials from time to time. So don't change the channel. Just wait for a special and then make your purchase.
So the last one, I think that I was turned on to this when a listener posted up on the Facebook. He wanted to know where people were getting some interesting accessories. Someone threw this up. I took a look at it at some point. May have been weeks later. I was taken to their website by another kind of random path, and I found another third reference that took me there. And so when you're drawn to a place that many times in a purely random way, you kind of have to look at that and take note of what it is they're doing that is creating all these completely independent pathways to their site. So the company is V7. The website is v7weaponssystems.com. They advertise themselves as the cure for the common AR. And, of course, we all know that puffery is an ever-present component of advertising in this day and age. But V7 does seem to be delivering on some of that hype. So let's take a look at a couple of the lower parts offerings. They have titanium trigger and hammer springs. Pins. They have an ultralight bolt catch. They have some new safety selectors, whether it's short throw or regular. They have some titanium grip screws. I haven't seen a titanium grip screw ever. They've got titanium buffer retainer. They've got some interesting buffer tubes. They've got a heavyweight castle nut, titanium castle nut, titanium end plates. They're really just kind of looking at all of the different pieces of the AR that we all love to shoot, trying to figure out how to make some of these components better. And to me, that is a compelling motivation. I like it when somebody looks at something and they aren't happy with the status quo. Not that they're going to change it in a way that is revolutionary, that will make us not do a thing the same way ever again, but that makes something that we all want to continue to do better. That, I think, is a wonderful drive. They've really got some interesting things that I think are worth looking at. But, you cannot dismiss a company that is going to put that kind of effort into their lineup, because it really just shows a dedication to what it is we all love to do, which is to build these things and get out and shoot them. All right there, silent sidekick. Get off the shopping cart and quit buying stuff.
Well, here's a couple of the things that I'm wondering. One, when did Grants Pass, Oregon, become the hotbed for AR-15s? V7 is there. They are neighbors with Noveski. And I grew up literally like 4 or 5 miles down the road from Grants Pass. This is all happening in my backyard, and I'm just, out of all the towns, all the places, that this place is doing some pretty amazing things. And the innovation of the stuff that they've got, looking through how you can make your AR your own. I think that's one of the underlying topics of the show. You're seeing several different manufacturers that are saying, well, we don't see this, or we see something like this, but we think we can do this a little bit better. So we're going to jump out and try it.
Well, here's my hypothesis on this whole thing. you had this entire industry related to aerospace engineering. And, I'm sure if I kept up with the whole, aerospace military projects, I'd be well aware of exactly where their shops and facilities are. But my guess is a great many of these companies were involved with either really bleeding edge civilian aerospace issues, or they were involved in military aerospace issues. Well, you get to a point where either there are too many of them or there isn't enough aerospace business to go about, and none of these people want to go broke and find themselves out of work, out of business, whatever. And they turn to what they can do. And with that skill set, with that kind of creativity, I mean, an AR compared to a Boeing 777 is nothing.
Yeah.
And to put a machinist or an engineer or whoever it is that's going to stand behind a problem and have it solved, and then say, go look at this AR, which is a simpler machine, I think, by any stretch of the imagination, and then say, solve a problem. I just don't think that you're going to have a solution from those guys that isn't just awesome. Now you put them at the perfect crossroads of an industry just, foaming at the mouth to buy quality gear, quality components, quality accessories. I think it's a winning combination. And, there's a lot of people in the Northwest that are in that aerospace line. I don't think that we've talked about many companies in the last year that are on this kind of bleeding edge that aren't former aerospace machine shops that have found this niche and created a space for themselves. And I'm happy that they continue. I do believe that there's going to be some pain because I think that you can only have so many awesome companies. Someone's going to, take the lead and gobble up the competition. Or other people looking to get into the space are going to gobble up these smaller companies. Maybe they'll succeed, maybe they won't. There'll be a lot of wringing of hands and shedding of tears either way. But I just can't see this as being bad for the industry. As long as good people with the right motivations are getting behind these companies, it's all good.
Absolutely. Good. The good companies will stay around. The bad companies will get weeded out by, customer service and the bigger companies looking to expand. So,
well, we hope. We always hope.
There's an occasional company that slips through, but just like we saw the other day or last night, the truth eventually does come out and it gets taken care of.
The truth will out. That is for certain.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that V7 is a company that's worth watching. It's worth taking a look at their components and see if there's anything that they offer that might be what you want or need for a build that you're putting together. I think that we always go back to the same core. We like to build the rifles. We like to build the rifles because when we build a rifle, we can make it everything we want it to be. There's not any lost effort, any lost energy in that because we're not having to swap out and replace and change up things that we wouldn't have put on our rifles in the first place, but for the fact that we bought it in a box. And so that, I think, is always going to be the core. And, one size does not fit all. I guarantee you that there are probably 15 rifles in the market today that I would drop the money on them if I had the money because they are what I want. But I've done it the way that makes the most sense for me, and I love every single one of my rifles. So I think we've talked about 5 companies that make things that I would put my money into. Win, lose, or draw, be your own source of information, be an informed consumer. But I don't think that you're going to go wrong by extending a little bit of faith in any of these directions. So, you think there's anybody out there that comes to mind that we haven't talked about? I mean, I know that that Fortis, Strike Industries, I think Damage has some stuff. There's just a whole lot of companies that are doing kind of neat things. Some of them kind of, writ large, some of them kind of writ small. You just can't tell at any given moment where people are going to have breakthroughs and take great strides. I'll tell you that Battle Arms, for me initially was always about that throw. That was an awesome safety selector. And then they kind of expanded the line, and all of a sudden they exploded like someone set off a nuke. And those guys are just making some really outstanding gear. It's an exciting time. And, I think that a lot of people thought that we were on the verge of death here. Heck, it goes back to when we started this silly podcast. How many episodes can you make of a podcast that talks about one rifle? At present count, 165, apparently. So these guys keep going out and doing new things and creating opportunities to really stretch the platform. That can only be a good thing for anybody that loves it.
Absolutely. And if there's somebody that you would like us to talk about, or somebody you think we missed, send us some feedback. We can only see so much stuff in a day. So ar15.podcast@gmail.com. That's ar15.podcast@gmail.com.
Now, I will tell you, if you know anybody you would like us to talk to, why don't you have them reach out? Because sometimes it's a little hard to get through the gatekeepers. Now, I know you're looking over there at JD and you're thinking, how can anybody stand up to such an intimidating giant bear of a man? Well, he's just a pudding pop there. So, that's why. So we need all the help we can get. Yeah, he's just a pushover, but, he's too polite.
I treat people with respect, but the cool thing is as things grow and our relationships grow, we're now actually having, when we reach out to contact people, they get pretty excited about being able to come onto the show to talk to you guys and share about their products or what their company's doing or their company's values. So if you know somebody or you're listening and you have a company and you want to talk, reach out. ar15.podcast@gmail.com. We'd love to talk to you. That's what we're here for. This is something we do because we greatly enjoy it. And I learn a lot each week. And unfortunately, my bank account learns a lot each week, too. Reed's the best pitch man for the last 165 episodes. I've spent more money listening to Reed than I think I've spent listening to Billy Mays or any of those guys. So if you have contacts, hit us up. We love to talk to somebody. We always looking for show topics, and right now we're scheduled about a month, maybe a month and a half out, but we move things around all the time. We've got exciting things coming up. New Frontier Armory guys coming up, Aero Precision, Bob Main, probably due to get somebody on from Otis Technology to talk about what they've got going on in their stuff. So we're always open to show ideas and stuff. You call me a pudding pop, man. I'm trying to recover from that.
You know what? It is all right. Having manners and being a gentle soul is okay. I can't help it that they, saddled you with the, brawn and the, face of a, giant man-eating bear, but, it's okay. You don't have to live up to the external reference.
I'm grateful that next week we do the show without you. We have the listener roundtable. give me some time to recover and find your replacement.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna try to make it next week if I can. We'll see.
We'll have to change the time, make it past your bedtime, I guess.
So I guess with that, why don't we go ahead and close, and we will talk about some of this outstanding feedback. So, This is the kind of feedback that I really enjoy getting. So Chris Peacock writes in, he says, my wife foolishly purchased me an iPod for Christmas. Within a couple of days, I discovered the Firearms Radio Network, and I've now completed an 80% lower build in 300 AAC. He says it's certainly not my dream gun, but with about 500 rounds through it, I have had only one misfire using strictly reloaded ammo with brass that I cut down and sized. I've jumped in with both feet, and I'm quite happy with my new hobby. Thanks for a great podcast and such complete coverage of the AR-15 platform. Without this podcast, I would not have had the confidence to buy a bunch of parts and start building what I lovingly refer to as my sport utility rifle. Now, I certainly don't think that Chris Peacock learned everything he knows about milling, building a rifle, cutting brass, reloading 300 blackout ammunition, and everything else that he's done strictly from our show. So I'm going to give Chris the benefit of the doubt as being quite an exceptional firearms enthusiast who just happens to like the AR-15 because of our show. But Chris, this is what we like to hear. I know that it is, for me, purely an ego boost to think that I can get on here and I can talk about something that I really enjoy, and I can make other people see what I see and feel what I feel and get out there and try it for themselves. And to me, that's just what it's all about. I don't think that I could have put it any better if I had paid you $20, Chris. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Next up, we have Craig, who submitted this last weekend. What is the difference between a New Frontier Armory 9mm AR-15 carbine versus a Stag Arm 9mm AR-15 carbine? I presume these shoot standard 9mm pistol rounds. They do. And you know what? I'm not the expert on this, but David from New Frontier Armory will be on the next episode, I think it's 166, and he is going to talk all about the 9mm carbine, and we will ask him your question, Craig, and get them to compare the difference. I'm just going to give you a little heads up. He's probably going to be partial to what he's doing there at New Frontier Armory, but both great companies, and we'll get your question answered next week on the next edition of the AR-15 podcast.
Now, before you move on, I want to let you know that there is one very big difference, Craig, and that's basically that one is made by New Frontier and the other is made by Stag Arms. So that's probably the principal difference between the two. Now, wait a minute. You laughed at this, JD, when I said this earlier.
Yeah,
no,
because
Craig.
I know where I would know the choice I would make.
Craig, we are just poking fun. I am belaboring the obvious, so please forgive me. I am not trying to have any fun at your expense. I think that David is probably a pretty good source of this. I will tell you that what I think is probably the principal difference in the two is that my guess is that the New Frontier Arms is going to rely on Glock magazines, which is, I think, where the pistol caliber ARs are headed because of how, common a Glock magazine is. While I think the Stag Arms AR-15 carbine relies on a proprietary magazine, which, that makes it harder to come by. That also makes them more expensive. And, who wants to get into something like that? So I think that's probably between the two. The principal difference is that the magazines are different. In all other respects, I think everything is kind of holding true to an original design philosophy behind pistol caliber ARs. So there you go. That is my moment of wisdom there.
Our
grand scheme of knowledge
from the Grand Poobah.
Yeah.
For our final piece of feedback, to the guy who signed up 157th in the AR 9mm carbine giveaway, who I thought would be number 1 or 2, Tom has given us basically the step-by-step play-by-play of the build of his new rifle, and it is a Ghost Rider themed build. He just got it complete. And when I say play-by-play, Tom, I checked. You have sent us 97 messages in the last 2.5 months. So he is very well connected and letting us know how it's going. And this rifle, Reed, did you see it on the Facebook page?
I didn't see it on the Facebook page. I've been following his messages and interjecting every once in a while, but I'm telling you, this is one awesome build.
It is amazing. The work that is done on this build, the detail in the design and everything on it is really worth checking out. It may not be for you, but I'm telling you, it's one of those guns that you'll see probably floating around on a repost on an Instagram feed. Spike's Tactical shared it today, so we've put it up for Tom on the AR-15 podcast Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AR-15 podcast. You'll see Tom's rifle there, and it is a thing of beauty. Tom, I don't know if you should shoot it or not. I don't know if I would let that be shot after all that work, and I know how much he's got into it, and it's a pretty penny, but it really came out worth every dime he spent.
You know what? That might just need to be in a museum. I tell you what, Tom, you know what? I know it's hard to own something you can't shoot. Box that bad boy up. I will put it on display here at the Snyder household. I will put it in an awesome 3D glass-covered open display for anybody to look at. I mean, after they pay admission, but, you know, of course, that's just a standard fee. But, you know, it really is a nice rifle. Thanks, Tom. We appreciate you keeping us abreast of everything you did on it.
And that will end the feedback portion of the AR-15 podcast. We want to say thank you to the partners that have re-upped New Frontier Armory and their 9mm carbine giveaway. David will be on next week, episode 166. You can find the sign-up form at facebook.com/AR-15 podcast. You can also go to the website and check it out. It is at firearmsradio.tv. That's firearmsradio.tv. Go to the AR-15 podcast site, and it will have a link for you there. If you have questions or comments, show topic ideas, guests you'd like to see on the show, we're trying to track down a 3-gunner from 3-Gun Nation. Getting a lot of requests for that show. So if you know anybody and you'd like to get them in contact with us, you can send it to ar15.podcast@gmail.com. That's ar15.podcast@gmail.com. Also want to say thank you to Otis Technology for extending their relationship with the AR-15 podcast. They are one of the core sponsors, one of the first sponsors here, and they have taken very good care of you guys through their giveaways through the last year. And we know the giveaways haven't happened as much, but we're working on some pretty big things. 2016 is going to line up to be a pretty awesome year if you're a listener and looking to win some interesting and different prizes than last year. You can also subscribe and listen to the AR-15 podcast show for free on iTunes or Stitcher. Make sure you leave a review so the show can place higher in potential searches for listeners. And you guys have done a great job sharing the show. We are seeing a huge growth curve right now. More people tuning in and paying attention to the podcast about your favorite black rifle. And that's in big reason for you guys out there sharing and sharing the pictures, talking about it, sending people for the rifle giveaway. People are tuning in and checking out, which you already know. Share your pictures with us on Instagram at AR-15 Podcast. Tag your pictures with the hashtag AR-15 Podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/SOS or AR-15 Podcast. See, this is what happens when you run social media for so many different organizations. But that's facebook.com/AR-15 podcast. You also know now where I work in radio if you'd like to check that out too. Firearms Radio Network has a bunch of great podcasts on it. Check it out. You'll find the Brownells link there for all your AR-15 AR-15 parts needs, and also the Amazon affiliate links there at firearmsradio.tv. And with that, Reed, we bring episode 165 to a close.
Well, everybody, have a great week. We'll be back with some exciting stuff. So take care. Good night.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.